In progress.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 222 of the Your Money, Your Life podcast. We do this every week where we talk about business topics, investing, financial planning. Before we get into the episode, make sure you like, subscribe, 5-star rate, review the podcast wherever you're listening. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the notification bell so you know every time we go live. Let's get right into um, information for the day, which is the news update for the day, starting with the market. Big news yesterday was the Fed holding rates steady again. Fed holding rates steady. That was the actual press conference by Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Essentially, he ruled out an interest rate hike. So people were like, okay, if inflation is bumpy, would you actually raise rates at some point? And he said, no, we would not raise rates unless some new crazy data comes through that we have not seen before. All three major stock indexes jumped on the news, and then they kind of closed flat to lower towards the end of the day. So the emphasis was on really the Fed chair suing the markets, letting people know that we still have a lot of work to do on inflation. They'll be higher for longer. We may still get a rate cut this year, a rate cut or two this year, but it won't be till much later. And they have to see a lot more data to come through before they can make that decision. So, as we sit here today, the market is going to actually open up here in about 5, 6 minutes. If you're listening Thursday morning, it's already probably open. We're a little bit higher on the pre-market trading, but we'll see what actually transpires during the trading day when we get to that. But that was the big news. We saw some earnings from some companies. I was on CNBC yesterday talking about insurance names, talking about Zillow and DoorDash. So there was some trading in the market as far as names for earnings, but generally it's been a quiet market time. There's not a lot going on. We've seen the Fed doing what we expected them to do, and we'll see a lot more from data with inflation coming forward to see if they make any changes. But that's what we expected. Again, we're only in May, the beginning of the month, May, so we still have a lot to go on that front. Let's move to current events. Job openings at the lowest since 2001. So job openings fell to the lowest in 3 years during March, while the rate at which Americans voluntarily left their jobs dropped to a 4-year low. Available openings declined 8.49 million for a revised 8.81 million in February, according to the Labor Department's Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey. So just tell me things are tightening a little bit. Job openings starting to tighten even more. The labor market's been relatively strong. If you're still under 4% unemployment, that's still a strong labor market. But again, there's softness starting to show. And most people predicted a lot more softness in the labor market, in other areas of growth in the economy that didn't really show yet. So maybe we'll keep an eye on this job and openings data. That might be one of the areas to crack. The hiring rate across industries, 3.5%, is also the lowest since the pandemic hit in 2020. So you're seeing some of what the Fed's policy is doing trickle into the market, slowing growth, tightening the job market, doing things to really stop price increases. And these are some things that are supposed to happen. But hey, are we at a soft landing? Because if you have less than 4% unemployment, you have relatively strong growth in the economy. You're not at negative GDP, you're at positive GDP, and inflation is on a downward trajectory. Maybe you're at a soft landing. That rarely happens, but we could get there. So job vacancies are moderating, but remain above pre-pandemic levels. So you see from this chart, number of unemployed persons per job, seasonally adjusted. So it's moderating, but it's above pre-pandemic levels, but remain above pre-pandemic levels. Okay, here we go. It's quite interesting. So we still haven't really seen a dent there, but it's starting to moderate a little bit. Quits are the primary indicator to watch. The quit rate declined further from 2.2% in February to 2.1%. That is a good rate to watch. So a lot of people quitting. Remember, job jumping was a big thing that people did. And we actually have another story on that. I want to get to that one since it's a good segue. There was a story on job hopping and how it's better for wage growth. So if I find that, it was actually a chart. Need a pay raise, switch jobs. So growth in wages for job switchers slash stayers. So if you see from this chart from my YouTube people, there's a 4.9% growth in wage for job stayers versus it's on a 12 month rolling medium percent wage. So 12-month rolling medium percent wage growth versus job switchers 5.6%. That makes sense. It's going to be always historically higher if you look at the chart. If you switch jobs, you're going to get more money than if you stay and they like just pay you what. Why would they want to pay you more for doing what you do? So that's even if you get a promotion, it's like a minimal, raise. So that's something to note for people. While we're at it, we'll jump to more job news. Peloton just announced they're going to cut jobs, actually, 400 jobs, and they're ousting their CEO, Barry McCarthy. He's stepping down. The struggling workout company also said that they're laying off 15% of its workforce, or about 400 employees. That's, again, sad for the employees. It's a significant cost push. Peloton plans to continue closing retail showrooms. They had retail showrooms. That just sounds like a big waste of money. And revamp its international sales plan to bid in a bid to save 200 million by the end of 2025. They had disappointing quarter results. I could have told you that, with sales dropping about 4% from a year earlier, revenue falling for the ninth quarter in a row. Peloton hasn't turned a profit since December of 2020. So again, this is a struggling company. They ousted their CEO. McCarthy said he's going to stay on as a strategic advisor, while chairperson Karen Boone and director Chris Bruzo will act as an interim co-CEOs. Okay, so we have some unfortunate news of people saying that their ride at Peloton has ended. They enjoyed the company during its peak when Peloton was clearing Wall Street's darling amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So this gentleman was informed of being let go. He said he'll continue to root from the sidelines for the company and often remarked that our real competition was a sedentary lifestyle or couches, not just other companies. Okay. Is there any other people that were let go that have a um, LinkedIn post to share with us? No, it doesn't look to be. But yeah, again, these are moves that companies have to make to stay alive in these times. Really, really interesting news. Fed, we talked about it. The Federal Reserve pointing to a lack of progress in bringing down inflation in recent months. They left interest rates unchanged at a more than two-decade high at the conclusion of its meeting this week, and their central bank kept the target benchmark rate between 5.25% and 5.5%, and they indicated it was likely to keep rates elevated for longer. While consumer price growth slowed steadily last year, signs of price pressures have recently appeared, including higher than expected inflation data and robust growth in consumer demand. So they're looking at the data and they're seeing, again, he mentioned bumpiness in the road to under 2% inflation. And they got that a little bit with the data last month because there was increases in some areas. I was forgetting the specific areas now, but there was some increases and people were wondering, all right, are we actually going to get to that 2% target? And he said there will be bumpiness. So they're not making any rate cuts now, and they're going to wait to see what happens furthermore with that news. So UMG, Universal Music Group, has some of the biggest artists: Taylor Swift. I think Drake is under UMG, if I'm not mistaken. Lady Gaga. Their music was pulled from TikTok. Remember the whole spat we talked about a few weeks ago, and now TikTok and Universal Music Group have reached a multi-dimensional deal, allowing labels artists to return to the social media platform after a months-long dispute over royalties and use of AI. This is the world's largest music company. Started pulling its songs. So UMG was pulling its songs, and now they reached the deal. It will return to TikTok imminently, and users will be able to create videos and with it again. It's a new chapter. It's interesting they're doing it now because we all know what TikTok is going through with the 9-month time clock to divest from their parent company or be banned from the US. But that doesn't mean that people outside of the US don't use TikTok. Obviously, I'm assuming Asia is their largest base for users. So we'll see what happens with this. I mean, UMG's saying we're back on board. They negotiated, got things done. It makes sense. Probably a good deal for both sides. And now they're back on board. Other people trying to do a deal. Warner Bros, excuse me, Warner Bros Discovery is battling to retain NBA broadcast rights. So the NBA broadcast rights are up, meaning, of course, we know NFL, NBA, NHL, all the major sports programs have broadcast rights. There's certain broadcast providers that pay them billions to be able to have those exclusive rights to therefore run the games and then put advertising within the games. So Warner Bros. is had those rights and they've been paying So wait, so the NBC Universal is meanwhile offered to pay roughly 2.5 billion a year. So NBC is trying to come in and take those rights from Warner Bros. And it's a battle right now. Losing the NBA rights would end a long and lucrative partnership for Warner Bros. Discovery, TNT's cable network, and the popular Inside the NBA social. Inside the NBA with Chuck, Jack, Benny the Jet Smith, and Ernie is probably the most popular NBA show. It's a really funny, witty, good chemistry cast, and people love that show. So, but if Warner Bros. Discovery loses the rights, and the Inside the NBA show goes away because all those four gentlemen have deals that are tens of $1 millions per year with Warner Bros. Discovery. So if it goes to another provider, another broadcast provider, that show goes away. The NBA has also reportedly agreed to a framework for broadcast rights with Amazon and ESPN. So it looks like Warner Bros. Discovery might lose this, and I think that would be a terrible thing for them to lose the NBA. They've been doing a great job. NBC is nearing a deal to pay 2.5 billion a year to air a package of games, more than double the 1.2 billion annual fee Warner Bros. Discovery currently shells out. So they all want a package of games. They could split it up, get some games, but you want more games if you think that, NBA ratings viewership, which it is going up slightly, right? Especially internationally. So that's good to be seen. I'm really intrigued on what happens and who wins these rights because it's a big, big deal. And it has meaning to the players. Myself, being an NBA agent, a certified NBA agent, know that the revenue share from these deals, from these broadcast rights deals, is part of basketball related income that will go to the players. So you'll probably see the players pay start to raise as well once these new deals come up that are going to be much, much higher than the original deals that were inked 5, 10 years ago. So another tidbit there. And let's see what else we had as far as news. A lot to talk about, a lot to dive into this week. I don't think there was much else that we had, but we do have questions of the week. So we talked about the FTC ban, though. That's one thing I want to touch on. We talked about the FTC ban. It's a power move that could change labor making. So I was able to read more about it, and it really means that now corporations cannot stop companies, or excuse me, employees. So not, a non-compete is a contract that keeps employees from joining rival companies. So now corporations cannot stop employees from joining rival companies, except for a few bankers and some senior execs. They would be exempt from this ban of a non-compete. The FTC says that contracts stifle wage growth. Those contracts, meaning non-competes, stifle wage growth by preventing job hopping, and banning them could lift workers' earnings by 400 billion with a B over the next decade. Businesses argue non-competes protect their intellectual property, trade secrets, and hot sauce recipes. Basically, anything that gives them a confidential, gives them an edge, this should be confidential. So I see both sides to this, but in most cases, people just overkill with the non-compete. Like most people like leave a company aren't going to start their own, identical company. Like if someone's like intelligent enough or gritty enough to do that, then definitely there should be a non-compete on there. But most of the time, it's not the case. So a handful of states, including California, already don't enforce the contracts. A ban in New York, Wall Street's known for its non-competes, passed but was vetoed. Interesting. So this is a really hot button topic, the non-competes. What side do you land on the non-compete versus ban? Also, have you ever signed a non-compete before? I would love to hear your thoughts. Make sure to let me know in the comments. Let's dive into the questions of the week. We had a couple. We had a couple good ones, and we'll dive into those. The first one being, if I remember correctly, until what age can a child stay on their parents' health insurance? So child meaning any person. But what age can they stay at? And we all know from the Obamacare, we should know. I think it's 26. And that is the answer, 26 years old. That a parent, that a child can stay on their parents' health insurance. There's a misconception that young people don't have to get insurance because they're generally healthy. Of course, we know that's not a good conception. We know the Obamacare was one of the sweeping changes that he put in. That's one of his legacies, and it helps people stay on their parents' insurance policy until 26 years old. So that's a really, really interesting one. How much does the average taxpayer spend to file a return using tax software? Interesting. Isn't it like 200-300 bucks? I'll venture to guess. Tax Filing time is also annoying. Not speaking of the time, the money, like that's like not even much big deal of it. It's the time spent doing all these different things, talking to different people, all this different stuff. It's such a drain on your time unnecessarily, I feel like. And the answer is $200 a year. So it's $200 a year. And so interesting. Iris piloted a free tax filing program, and they're probably gonna roll those out. Yeah, that is kind of weird if you think about why do we have to pay to file taxes to pay because you've already paid. If you're getting a refund, you've already paid in and you're getting a refund back on what was owed to you. Or if you're self-employed like yourself, you're paying in to the government. It's interesting. Interesting thought. And they're gonna have to overhaul it. It's a really archaic system that probably needs some overhaul. And hopefully it gets done right. I will say the funding that this administration has put into the IRS has allowed for the service to be a lot better. I think we talked about that a few weeks ago. Service times, wait times, hold times, now much, much better. Used to hold on for 2 hours and not even get to speak to someone. Now it's like 5, 10 minutes. With that said, we had a good 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes here together. We'll do this every week. We will do this next week. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your family and friends, and we'll talk to you next